Jordi here from the Wills podcast. This is a space where we explore logistics, supply chain, family business, leadership, and much more. Today on the podcast, we've got Tom Hiebert, a friend of mine. Tom owns and operates Interclara, which is a recruiting and talent firm. And Tom tells us his journey of starting the company, technology that he's using, things that we don't know happen behind the scenes when you're looking for talent and recruitment. Hope you enjoy the podcast.
Awesome. So I'm here today with Tom Hiebert and with Interclara, and Tom's a friend of mine and asked him to come on to the podcast. So Tom, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So Tom, to just jump into it, a little bit about you, where you sitting today, where you're from, and a little bit about Interclara.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sitting in my office right now. It's sort of the west end of Toronto. I guess I can tell you a little bit about just at a very high level what Interclara does. So we're an executive and professional search firm. So really focus on finding talent for companies. And at a high level, my focus is on small to medium sized enterprise. So most of my clients tend to be between companies as small as like 30, 40 people, as large as about 1,000. Tends to be where I play, and then also work with some private equity and venture capital backed companies too.
That's awesome. And how long you've been running the company, and what did you do before this?
Sure. So we just hit about I guess it's a year and 6 months now. And I mean, I give you the background on kind of how I got into it. I've been in recruitment for, I guess, just over 10 years now. It's funny because I was at, I guess a previous role that I had, somebody had asked me, they said, well, I was interviewing for a role as managing a team of recruiters. And they said, oh, who tricked you into getting into recruitment? Because I honestly didn't even know it was a job when I was in university. I think when I graduated, I was pretty optimistic. I had done a general business degree and I thought, well, maybe I'll go into sales or who knows? I didn't know what I was going to do. And when I did graduate, I guess a month before I graduated, a family friend had offered me a sales role at his SaaS company. It was an entry level business development role. I was just going to be making cold calls, and I would have had to move to Toronto. And at the time, was living in Guelph and really liked it there, and kind of wanted to stay. And the guys I was living with at the time still had an extra semester, and so I thought, oh, it'd be great if I could find a way to stay in Guelph. And a friend of mine was on the rugby team, and he had done an internship at a recruitment firm, and he was going back to work for them full time. We were both graduating at the same time, and he said, "Oh, why don't you come and work with me? It'll be kind of fun." They hired a lot of these sort of type A type people. They had sponsored the athletic banquet, and they hired someone from the hockey team, and there were two of the guys from the rugby team. And I thought, oh, this will be a blast. So I went and interviewed, and I remember walking into the director's office, and all he had was baseball memorabilia. He was from Indiana, and he was, big into sports. I think we talked about sports for 45 minutes, and at the end of it, he offered me the job. I don't think we even talked about the job, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to do so well. So anyway, I started there. I don't think I did as well as I thought I was going to do. I mean, it was fun, but it was a lot of work. It was like 70-hour weeks. I was making very little money. They had kind of sold it as, oh, you're going to do so well. And but it was great. You kind of cut your teeth, get out of this university mindset. And anyway, so I was there for a little over a year, and then I ended up moving to Toronto, and I worked in software sales for 5 years for the same company. Started in business development, moved up into working as an account executive, and ended up managing a sales team. And I actually ended up doing some recruitment. They were a small company. They were about, I think, 30 people when I started, and maybe about 60 when I left. And I helped out a lot with recruiting, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But I never thought I was going to go back to it. So anyway, I worked there for about 5 years, and then the owner decided that he was going to sell the company, and I'd really enjoyed working there. But I thought, I would like to go and do something else. And sort of at the same time, this Dutch company reached out to me. They were setting up nuclear power plants, and it was just this sort of niche recruiting. They would do everything from hiring the people that would do the commissioning all the way up to the engineers and all of that. And they were setting up a Canadian office, and they asked if I would join. It was going to be sort of this dual recruitment sales role. So I took a leap and I joined, and it was great for 2 years, and I really, really enjoyed it. And that was kind of the time when I met this gentleman at our church. I was volunteering with we call it our college and careers. It was like people that either in school or had recently graduated, and him and his wife were moving out of the city, and he'd asked if I would kind of lead that, and I just said yes. I'm happy to help out. And he owned a private equity firm. He worked for Goldman Sachs, and then he had founded this private equity firm. And he said, would you ever want to run a business? And I thought that'd be great, but I have no good ideas right now. And he said, well, you can buy a business. I was like, well, that's also great, but I have no money either to buy a business. And he said, well, I know of one that's for sale. I can help you. I'll put up some money if you can find some investors. Anyway, long story short, I tried to buy a business. I thought that was going to be my career path. I spent 2 years and a lot of my money and other people's money trying to go through this due diligence and M&A transaction and buy this company. And we got it to the 1 yard line, and the owner decided he didn't want to sell it. And to make a long story short, I had just quit that other job. And then this thing didn't work out. And I thought, what am I going to do now? I have this kind of mixed bag of, recruitment and sales. And I tried to buy this company. And so anyway, I thought, maybe I can start something. And really what I knew was recruitment. And I'd worked for a couple big recruitment firms, and I knew that there was a need for it. But I also knew that a lot of business owners were skeptical of recruiters. They kind of felt like, maybe the way that people feel about realtors, like, oh, you unlock the door and now you expect this big commissions check or something, and they felt that it was just sort of throwing darts at a board, seeing what stuck. And then, and really the challenge for these small businesses and medium-sized businesses was finding a strong culture fit. And so I said, maybe I can play there. Maybe everyone's focusing on these big companies. Everyone wants the Fortune 1000 clients that are, going to give them 10, 15 roles a month. Maybe I can really focus on these founders, these owners, these operators, and help them find talent that really aligns with their business. So I started there, and it was a slog. I don't think I made any money for 4 or 5 months, and then I got one client and gave it everything. It worked out, and they told a couple people, and then they told some more people. And I know it's sort of a simplistic overview, but that's kind of how it started.
One question for you is, if you saw two paths, one is business development and one was recruitment, like for you, how did you lean to recruitment? Like, I see, naturally see some similarities with relationship, but why recruitment over BD?
That's a good question. And I actually don't know that I see them as very different. I think if I were going, because I started in recruitment and then I was in business development, and then I was kind of doing both roles. And, with Thomas, I was doing business development and I was doing recruitment. And when I started a company, I really just needed something that I needed a service or a product that I could sell. And this is what I knew. And so I said, well, I know that I know that I can do recruitment. Now, obviously business development's a big piece of my job. I have one employee, and so it's got to get done somehow. So I do the business development, I manage the relationships, but I knew that what I could give other people was recruitment. I knew that was something that I could do and where I could provide value. So I didn't see a world where I was just doing one or the other. And I think something that bothered me a little bit about recruitment firms was I felt that all the people that had the most experience were sort of sitting at the top, and they were disconnected from the recruitment. And so they were sort of telling all these entry level people, this is what you need to do, go find these people. And then they were not doing it. And so I thought, well, I don't really want to live in an organization where the people that have all this experience aren't doing it. And so I think that's sort of how I came to that. But I do both. Really, my days split between the two.
What was it like bringing on a team member? Like, how did you figure that part out in terms of, okay, here's how I'm wired, here's where the business is today, here's where it could be tomorrow, and what is it that I need? So what was it like for that, figuring out, how to double your payroll?
Yeah, I mean, it was scary for sure. There's always that temptation, at least I felt, you start to make some money and then you make a little bit more and you think, oh, I want to keep this to myself. But I knew that I wanted the quality to stay the same, and I was getting stretched too thin. I I kind of had an idea of how many projects I could handle without quality slipping. And I was getting to the point where we are going to get over that. And so you can put more hours in, but at a certain time point, you have to, to scale. And so I sort of took a leap. We closed a few projects, and I said I need to bring somebody on to really help me with this. And so I ended up hiring somebody that I had worked with at my first role. We actually started on the same day, and so I ended up bringing him on. And thankfully, we're looking at bringing one more person on now. They haven't officially started yet, but I guess that will be three.
Yeah. If you need any help recruiting for that person, sounds like you already have them, but give me a shout, Tom, if you need
Yeah,
any
I'll
help with
let
that.
you know.
Right? I mean,
Maybe we'll need a
you
fourth.
like a talent recruitment firm should be like the best, right? At finding, they should have 100%. What's your close rate? They should knock all those KPIs off, right? Because you guys are
You
so
would
good.
think, yeah. What do they say? The cobbler's kids have the worst shoes. I yeah, I don't know. I remember when I worked for this software company. We were a training software company. We had the worst training. So sometimes the things that it's easy to give advice. It's easy to like think like, oh, this is what we should do. And then when you're the one writing the check, and when you're saying, well, my industry is so nuanced, it becomes a little bit harder. But you're right, we should.
So, Tom, when you're when you're first talking with a customer, and like, what's that process like when they're trying to fill? So let's say they haven't used a firm before, like yours,
Mhm.
to find talent, and they're when they talk to you, they think that's 100% sure what it is that they need. And then
Mhm.
what are those like first few conversations like where um you're helping them assess what it is that they really need? Like, what's that
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're saying if they are 100% sure, if they're not 100% sure.
Yeah, they come to you and they say, we haven't used a firm before, but we're going to use a
Yeah.
firm, and we're really sure we need this type of person. And you've been through the rodeo. You know that there's questions to ask to help them
Yeah.
really understand what it is that they need. Because I'm sure there's a process there where
Yeah, absolutely.
I come to the table and it's like, I need this
Mhm.
tomorrow. And then you start asking, you go through your process of understanding their organization. So yeah, what's that like for you? Because I'm sure the starting point
Yeah.
of a need doesn't always equal the ending point.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I think the first thing that I want to do is I would never presume to understand one of my clients' organizations better than they would. And so, I always want to have a conversation. I want to be careful not to just take something and say, yeah, let's get started right away. I want to understand. I know that it's important to work quickly and efficiently, but I want them to tell me about their company. Of course, I need to do my research and understand it too. But I want them to tell me about it. I want to understand the story, kind of want to understand the culture. One of the benefits to working with small to medium sized businesses, most of the time, I'm working with, the founders, the owners, the CEO. And so I get the story. So really understanding that, and then understanding, why are you looking for this person? Like, help me understand where they fit in the organization, and having a conversation about that, and where they see the current gaps, and playing that back to them, and really validating those assumptions. And then one of the things that I've done, and it just sort of happened, and I found that it's a helpful tool, is I'll say, why don't we work together on building a job description? Now, a lot of times they'll have one already. And I don't so much do it so that I have it, but I find that it can be a bit of an iterative process where when we go through building out, I call it an opportunity brief a little bit better. And so I say, we can have this, external facing job description, but let's build an opportunity brief together. Here's what I understand the role to be. Here are my assumptions. Here are some questions that, a lot of times there's sort of this tribal knowledge where you just know something about your company, and the people that work there know that, but I don't know that. And the people that we might be interviewing aren't going to know that. And so I need to be able to draw that out. And so when we can go through and we can create an opportunity brief, and I can ask questions, and you can say, oh, well, I thought that would be obvious, but I guess maybe I assumed. And we can come up with that together. I find that it creates a more fulsome picture, and then I can take that and I can really go and find somebody that fits. I also, for the most part, try to always go and see the office that my clients work at. I want to like get a sense for what the feeling is there. so that I can describe that to somebody. And when I meet them, I can say, oh, I think they're going to love it. Or, you know what, I'm just not sure that this is the best fit for them.
So it's really like double. You're kind of you're playing the ultimate business development, where you are, of course, talking to potential firms that you feel like you can support. You're building relationships, building trust, so that you can, support them if they have a need. But then when you
Mhm.
have some candidates through the door, you're doing some selling of that. So like you're you're in a you're in this relationship business where you've got to make both. You have to speak to what your firm does, and then once you've got candidates, what their firm does, and you're really developing on both sides, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's the kind of business where I find, maybe you could say this for a lot of businesses, but it does take a long time to build trust. It's the barrier to entry is relatively low to start a recruitment firm. I mean, it's like landscaping. Anybody can buy a truck and throw a shovel in the back. Doesn't make you a good landscaper. You know what I mean? But over time, people learn that they can trust you. They learn that, hey, when I work with Interclara, hope what they say is that the talent that we get matches our business. That was money well spent, um, and they'll come back. And then also the candidates. I mean, we always want to create a respectful experience for them. The number of times that maybe I have somebody for a position and I'm honest and upfront. I don't leave them out to dry or never get back to them. And I tell them, I just don't think this is going to be a good fit for you, but I want to, they respect that. And it was a number of times where then I've been able to find something else for them. And I've also had it where I work with a lot of VPs and C-suite executives where maybe they're not a good fit for a role, but then they're in a position to use me later, and they'll come to me and say, "Hey, now I'm with a different company, and they're the CFO or the CEO, and they need somebody, and then I can help them." So it just takes time to build that trust, and people know that that you're going to take time to think about it. You don't just see them as a transaction.
So if you had unlimited kind of network development time,
Hmm.
what percentage is looking for a firm that you could, support, that could be a customer, or just
Yeah.
general talent networking, right? Like knowing who's out there. Because if you know someone that you personally know, you can make connections obviously
Hmm.
a ton
Yeah.
quicker, right? So how would you divide that time? So networking for the
Yeah.
sake of a new client, networking for the sake of talent. How do you break that up?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I find that it can be somewhat one and the same. Like, I mean, I'm constantly attending events. Um, I I think I mentioned earlier that I given some talks at colleges and universities. I try to I attend a lot of tech events. Um, and but I find that the people that I could potentially network are also my potential clients too. Or candidates. They can be both, right? If I meet a CFO or a CEO, I could place them or they could use me. And it goes both ways. And so, I haven't, and I'm thankful for this, I haven't had to do a whole lot of business development. And this may change, but so far I found that the best business development is delivering really well with the clients I have, and they tell people about me. And that's how a lot of that's happened. And then going to events, and I find I don't really like traditional business development. I used to hate going to trade shows. I'm sure there's a place for it, and I know that it works for some people, but I hated just, hey, handing out business cards. It just never worked for me. But I loved relationship building. And so being able to go to an event, and I think people are expecting me to sell them something. And if I don't, I just want to build a relationship and genuinely get to know them. The number of people that have then come to me and said, "Hey, I could use you for this." I mean, they know where I am. Then it's not hard to find a recruiter if you want one. So I want them to think of me. And so that's how I've done it so far. I'm not saying that I've never gone to somebody and say, "Hey, I really think I could help you with this. Can we work together?" Um, but I would say that it's less than 10% of what I do.
Yeah. I heard that it's like your industry is described, it's relationship, not resume. Meaning when you think
Yeah,
about what you're doing, having a connection, is 10x worth time spent reviewing anonymous resumes.
totally.
Can you talk for a sec about, I'm assuming that when there is really good talent, that your window is short. So I'm guessing that there are time constraints on two sides. One of the sides is I need someone in that chair yesterday, and then you
Mm,
on the talent side, you've got folks who are doing well. Like they're doing
mhm.
well. They've got a history, and so their window of time is short. And so, how do you provide a that quality solution under those two time restraints?
Right. That the client needs something quickly, and that the person that is potentially going to that role, if they're not working, the window for them to find something is probably short.
Yeah,
They're
like
in demand.
you touch base with them, like you're not the only
Yeah.
one that they're talking to, right?
For sure, absolutely. Um, I find like there's things I can control and there's things that I can't control. One of the things I can't control is somebody else getting offers, and I can't control how fast my client goes. I can encourage them. I can give them the best information, but after that, they have to make a decision on their own. And so I can't like it used to bother me so much when I would have a perfect client and I reach out and I just felt like or I'd have a perfect candidate rather, and I felt like the client was taking too long, or I had a candidate and they said, "Well, I have other offers. I need to know by Friday," and they're like, "Well, we can't interview them until next Tuesday." I have to let that not bother me. So what I would do is that there's it's such a roller coaster, and sales is like this. Is that you just have to be. I found the best policy is to be very honest and transparent and not get flustered, and just say. I might say to a client, I just want to be upfront and transparent that they do have interviews. It's no problem. We can set this up for Tuesday. A lot of times they come back and say, well, we can meet them earlier, or maybe they can't. And, and it is what it is. And they'll understand that I didn't pressure them into something. So they don't feel like they're being sold. They feel like I'm coming them with the right information. I'm uncovering the right talent. And even if I find the right person and they end up getting a different role, this happened like 2 weeks ago. Um, they know that I can identify the right kinds of people. And that person also knows that I was honest with them. I didn't pressure them. I didn't blow up their phone. That candidate, if they're looking again, is going to come back to me. And so it's just they're variables I can't control. All I can do is be honest, build the relationship, and let both sides know where the other's at.
We Tom, we have there's a labor firm agency in so yeah, different realm, but they're in Ottawa. Shout out to Express is their name, and they have built such a great relationship with us that they know what will work and what don't work. Like they only put stuff in front of us that works. And
Right.
if you walk through our Ottawa warehouse, um, I think all but two. So yeah, high 90s% they've placed. And
Really. Yeah.
they took the time to build a relationship. And the interesting thing is we have no other model like it at the other warehouses. There's no agency that knows us so well and is that committed. And so you think about the value they've added to us by knowing our values and what we're about. Like it's exceptional.
Mhm.
And we don't have the same partnership or relationship in some of the other rural parts of yeah. So and it's not that it's always perfect, but it's for our business and for some of the main like frontline roles like operators and customer service, even
Right.
supervisors. It's just amazing how much stress they take off us and time by putting two people in front of us, two people
Mhm.
max. Usually
Right.
usually just one, and that's it. So, anyways,
Mhm.
it's pretty neat um, to have a firm that is willing to get to know you because
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's when your value is there, and that's what I sense from you too in building this business, right? Because you could be like every other recruiting business or whatever that means to you. But question for you: do you where you're at right now, Tom? Do you enjoy small and nimble, big focus on long-term relationships, or do you see or envision a bigger firm someday?
Yeah. Actually it's a question I've been thinking a lot about, and as I look to build it a little bit, I'm not sure that, and this is a bit of a bigger question. So stop me if I get off the question, but I I would like to grow it, I guess, is the short answer. That said, I have no aspirations to make another big recruitment firm. I sort of think that those will. maybe not cease to exist right away, but I think they're on their way out. I think recruitment as a whole is going to grow as an industry. We know this, but I think big recruitment firms they're struggling right now, and they will continue to struggle. Um, I see kind of the optimal size as being, between, and for what I do, and again, this could change. We're looking at maybe opening an outsourcing option and doing some other things, but particularly for, very specialized mid to senior level roles, and salespeople and individual contributors. I think that the ideal size is somewhere between 5 and 15 employees, really getting to understand your clients, everybody feeling ownership for something, having an agile team that can adopt different technologies quickly, that can make decisions where people feel like they have ownership in a business. I see that as the best model. I have no aspirations to build the next, gigantic recruitment firm. That's not my goal, and it doesn't really align with me. Not to say that those aren't great businesses. It's just not where I see this going, and not where I see the industry going.
Tom, what are you hearing and seeing are hot kind of job categories or backgrounds right now? Like, are you seeing and hearing in your world an uptick of, for example, how does my company come alongside AI technologies? Okay, we're looking
Mhm.
for like a process mapper. We're looking for, so what sort of things are you hearing and seeing that are seem to be popular or in high demand, or at least high curiosity? Yeah, high
Mm.
demand for what kind of job categories?
Like, what kind of roles do I see the most of,
Yeah,
or
like a
what
role or a back.
industries?
No, not industries. A role or a background.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I mean, if I was just to look at the data this year, the role that I probably fill the most of is CFOs. I'm not sure why, but I get a lot of people. I've probably done 5 or 6 this year. So we get a lot of those. It seems to be in demand. I do. One of my clients owns a family office, and they're invested heavily in AI technology. So a lot of the roles I get, people are looking for. The term I hear is AI native, and which often I would consider myself even AI native. I felt like I was a pretty early adopter, but sort of the Gen Z who has grown up with this and has really, as they've entered the workforce, this has been there, and want to know how to can use this and know how to enhance the work they do with it. So I see that as something that's big. Something I think that a lot of us couldn't have anticipated is seeing less programmers, because now AI can do a lot of that. I think we all thought, when I was in university, everyone said, "Oh, if we're all going to be working for the programmers someday," and it seems like the programmers are working for the people that can use AI now. So I think that I've seen that change a little bit, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. I'm part of Tech, the executive committee,
Yeah.
which is a CEO forum. And when it comes to finance, I see that a lot as well. There is I think it's such a unique and specific role. Um, it's so much more than, like you talked about CFO. CFO is so critical. It's a make or break. It's mission critical.
Mhm.
You got to come alongside ownership, and you got to come alongside operations. You have to communicate. So it's a really big role. And so what I'm saying is, I see that a lot as well. Is if you don't have
Mhm.
anyone in your contact list, you got to nail it. With this role, and
Yeah.
it's unlikely there's someone in the organization that can do it. Therefore using a firm. So anyways, I see that as well. You had mentioned it.
Yeah.
Um, just as a side note, you mentioned AI. I'm seeing some of my peers already deploying some of their own people to go off and giving them space or even a full-time role to go and develop, within the company.
Mhm.
And they some of them don't necessarily have a programming background. Um,
Right.
but it's interesting that, yeah, there's small and medium-sized firms already that are deploying people to go and find solutions to problems that they knew they had or they didn't know they have. So I'm sure that your next 12 months even will be about a role that isn't quite defined yet, but it's about taking advantage of um, some of this amazing technology that's available, and
Totally.
you'll have to figure some of that out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you just to go back, you mentioned that you're part of tech. I'd say probably three quarters of my clients are part of tech, and so probably a big reason I'm seeing a lot of these CFO roles are, mostly uh, small to medium size business owners. And again, you mentioned it was different than it's a critical role. It's different than a VP of finance. It's bringing that strategic direction in as well, not just the FP&A and the financial oversight. There's a bit more to that role. So yeah, absolutely.
For you, as starting out as a one person business, what are some of the ways that you've found technology to help with your day, to help with your company?
Like AI specifically, or technology?
Anything, yeah.
Anything? I mean, I think, there's so much. Even, sometimes it can be a pain. For example, fireflies. You're like, now it's joining my meeting and I can't get it to stop. But that's helped me a ton. I interview people all day. I'm in meetings with clients all day, and a lot of time, like a big piece of it is honesty and remembering what people said. And I used to try and scribble notes away, and I still take notes on OneNote and things like that. But at the end of a meeting, sometimes I say, what did they say about that specific thing? And you've talked to so many people, and you can go back into you. So using like an AI note taker that will transcribe a call, and I can go in and I can see, what I said, and review it and be thinking about it. I remember going, it was like a take your kid to work day with my dad back in like 1998, and he had those little camcorders. He would record it and you put it on the desk. And it's the same idea, right? But now I have it all in front of me, and I can say, what did Jordi say to X? And it's like, oh, that's at 33 minutes, and I can find it, and I'm like, there it is. And so that's one example. I'm constantly, something I try to do is every month I try and set a couple hours on a Friday, so the sort of last Friday of every month, and I review my tech stack, and I look through it and I say, is there anything redundant here? Anything I don't need? And then I think, are there any problems that I think could solve? And I spend time researching. And I'm doing this throughout the month as well. But I want to set dedicated time, or else it just doesn't happen, right? You hear about something and you think, oh, I'll remember that later, and then you don't. And so just trying to think, are there things that I could be doing? Is there a better way of doing this? Can I be more efficient? Are there maybe any gaps or pain points? And then the thing is, you can even use AI. Sometimes I have a problem and I don't know if something exists to solve it. Describe the problem to AI. Oh, here's a solution. Here's a tool you didn't even know existed for a problem you just described to me. Great. When do I start? So like I find that's really helpful, and I do find that AI is helpful as well. I find that there are limitations, obviously, but being able to synthesize thought, being able to sometimes I when I have a problem that I'm working through, or I'm thinking about a role, I just write, and I get like 2-3 pages of my thoughts down on paper, and it's kind of jumbled. And then I think, like, I could spend time kind of cutting it up and whiteboarding it out, or I can give it to AI and I can say, can you sort through this and kind of pull out my main points? And I'm able to kind of think about it clearly. And I use it a lot for kind of working through a problem. So anyway, those are a few things.
So would you be willing to share some of them? So you use Firefly for
Yeah,
note-taking?
so Fireflies is what I use for note taking. I use ChatGPT a lot for kind of working through problems in my head, for trying to organize thought. Yeah, I actually have my whole stack on my phone, and I can tell you,
Yeah.
I'm constantly updating it. If you give me a second, I'll pull it up and I'll tell you what I'm using right now. Let's see. What else do I use? I use I use something called Toggle, and it's like a docketing system. So I'm always trying to like find a way to you know uh, figure out where my time is going. And I was chatting to my brother's a lawyer, and he was telling me about how he dockets his time, and I thought, oh, it's the only industry that I know that uses that. And so I want to be honest with my clients, and I want to figure out. I also want myself. I want to figure out, how much time should I charge for something? How do I make this project profitable, but also not overcharge? So I sometimes use docking systems to figure out how long it actually takes me to fill a role, and so that I can kind of figure out, because pricing is the hardest thing to come up with when you have a business. I imagine it's kind of the same for logistics. Pricing is massive. Um, I use something called Smart Receipts for to track all my expenses, and then I can put them all in a CSV, send it to my accountant, and I track it all. I use OneNote daily. That's a big one. I know that's probably not anything particularly fancy, but I use that all the time. Yeah, those would be some of the things I use. I'm trying something new right now called TickTick, and it basically organizes your calendar. So I'm always trying something new, and sometimes it'll be a huge pain. I'll waste an hour and a half trying to set something up, and I'm like, I don't like this. I'm not going to use it. But once in a while, you solve a problem, and then it's something you add to your stack. And so, yeah,
How
those
do
are
you,
some
how
of
do
the things
you
I'm using.
how do you manage the contacts today? Like just in terms of, are you using a light CRM,
Mm.
or do you have anything that you've done that works for you from a CRM perspective?
Yeah, I have a CRM called Loxo that I really like. I'm kind of I have a sort of a love-hate relationship with CRM systems. I find that in every company I've worked for, and through mostly no fault of their own, it's just sort of human nature, that people always try to find the easiest way to do something. And so when you have a CRM, most people, it's the part they hate doing about it. And salespeople in particular hate logging information. And so I'll do it later. I'll put in partial information, I'll get back to it. And then before you know it, you have like a million data points and they're all wrong. And it becomes this massive mess. And then eventually you get oversight from like upper management, like you have to use it, and it becomes this big mess. So I find that the simpler the better. So I use this system called Loxo. It's very simple, but I find that my only rule is we'll have the simplest system. I won't make you use Salesforce. I won't make you use HubSpot. I won't do any of that. Not that they're not great tools, but you have to promise that everything's put in properly. We have what I call golden rules, and we say there's not very many of them, but you have to follow them, and everybody does. It's not like I can just throw something in and assume that because I can that it's going to be okay, because that's how things fall apart. And so I use Loxo. I also have a something that we coded and built here. So I just a file structure where everything's always the same. So you have, I have for every client, we'll have a project, and then there's all the resumes, there's all the supporting documentation, and we built that out, and everything is always tracked that way, no exceptions, to try and keep things organized. And so far it's worked well, obviously. And hopefully as we grow, we'll have to move to more of probably engage with the CRM more, but I find that the simpler, the better. Also, just doesn't get used properly.
Nice. Do you think you have forced yourself to be technology curious, or does it come naturally? In other words, like, do you enjoy researching a new platform and what it could do for you, or do you have to force yourself?
I think I'm a naturally curious person, and but I would never have described myself as a technologically savvy person. I still wouldn't describe myself that way, but I also don't like, if there's a better way to do something, that I want to know. And when you're a small company, you have to be agile. I don't have endless amounts of people to do work, and so you have to get creative. And so if there's something that technology can take off my plate, I want to use it. And so I think I'm curious, but would never have considered myself a tech person. I think I forced myself to be one.
So here's this pretty specific question, and if it's two trade secrets, don't worry about it. But let's say you've got a number of people that you're interviewing for a specific role.
Yeah.
You're pulling the results from that. You've got data now.
Hmm.
You've got data from the interview. Have you built anything, or is there something out there that can take all that data and response? Now I realize there's no gut feel to it. There's no, it can't sense
Mm.
charisma, except, but is there a way that you can take that data and put it into a filter or a matrix that is based off of what you've set up for that role, or just the baseline job description? Like, is there a way that you can take that and
Yeah.
it'll give it a first pass based off of either criteria you submitted or job description?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, no trade secrets. There's nothing hidden about it. So yes and no. Maybe I can give you an example for both, and stop me if I'm deviating from your question at all, but I'll give you an example. So one of the things we're focusing on is outsourcing. And so I'm working with with another company, and we're trying to help companies here outsource some talent. So some roles could be outsourced to, say, like the Philippines or to India or to Ukraine or South America. Now, for those roles, let's say that I post let's say it's a customer service role. I'll probably get 1,000, maybe 2,000 applicants. I can't possibly screen all of them. So I have somebody that will screen a lot of, maybe I get that down to 150 people. And then I need to put out some sort of a questionnaire to evaluate them. And I can build a matrix and I can maybe rank them on 5 things out of 5, 1 through 5. And then I can come up with maybe a short list of 20 people or 10 people even. And then it comes down to an interview and you have to talk to somebody. There's no way to. I've seen people try to totally move this to AI, and I think it's impossible. I don't think that you can ever fully recruit, or if it is, I don't know that I want to be a part of that. But I do think you can build systems that will help you get it down to it. I find at the executive level, I haven't seen that. I don't think it's possible. I think it just requires, and really even at like a manager director level, it requires so much. There's a lot of just understanding your client, understanding the role, understanding what they're looking for. There's nuance when you speak to somebody. I've seen people with perfect resumes and you talk to them and you think, you know what, there's just something that's not right. I can't think of a specific example, but there's for one reason or other, they're not going to be good for this. And then sometimes you talk to somebody else and maybe on paper, there might appear to be a gap or two, or there's something that maybe didn't line up perfectly, but then you speak to them, you think, oh, they're just perfect. And obviously you have to be able to articulate that to a client, but I can't, that I don't believe can be replaced. But certainly you can have systems and for every role, I have filters that'll apply in order to get a manageable number of people to review. No doubt about it.
Do you have it figured out, a range of number of input hours to get a successful candidate? Like, do you have, I have no idea the range, but
yeah, I have it probably more in weeks. I can give you. I mean, so it depends. I would say that for a mid-level role, like an individual contributor or a manager or a sales role, it's typically 4 to 6 weeks. And that's to like have them starting in the job. And then I find for exec search, it's 8 to 12. Typically. Now, things can go faster. I find that like people often say, oh, that sounds like a very long time. I find that at least half of that particular executive search level is negotiating, like is them working it out and going through multiple interview processes because it's such a critical hire that the company that we're hiring them for wants to meet them for so many times before they're convinced that they're going to be the right fit. It's not like, yeah, we'll do a Teams call and then you can come meet me in person and we'll get this done. It just never, every once in a while that happens and you're like, this is great. It's by far the exception. And so that's pretty standard is 4 to 6 for these sort of mid-level roles, 8 to 12 for exec search. But I mean, even last month I had a company that wanted 2 project managers and we filled them in 2 weeks. So sometimes It goes really quick. You find the right person and they're like, we love it. And they're both still there and they love the job and it works out really well. But that's the exception. It doesn't usually work like that.
Wow, that's very impressive. Yeah, a lot of things need to align, right? On their end.
Everything has to align. I wish it was all like that, but it isn't.
So Tom, you and I met, well, we definitely knew each other. So things go back, some of your family comes back to this area here where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so we met at Guelph and, in that particular context, there was, I was working with Power to Change. And so you and I have a faith background. Mm-hmm. For you, Tom, what has been, or how has that played into, I guess, how you're establishing yourself and your company values? Has it been helpful and kind of who is it, the kind of company you want to run? How does that play a role?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because it was actually something I was discussing with a friend this week. And I think when I started the company, I knew I wanted it to be central and I knew that I couldn't make this work on my own. But I wasn't sure that I had a clear vision. I wanted to do excellent work, but I think some of that came down to maybe, me wanting to build something, wanting to be remembered for something. And I've been chatting with one of my close friends. He's a partner at a law firm down in Windsor, and I was visiting him and his wife last week. And we're both reading through a book right now called Every Good Endeavor. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's by Tim Keller. And I actually wrote one of how I would summarize the book. It's about kind of how we see our work. I think a lot of us, or what they identified is a lot of people sort of work so that they don't have to work anymore. It's like, well, maybe if I just work really hard, and kill myself for 20 years, then I won't have to work again. Or they see it as, it sort of enslaves me, and I can't wait until I get to the point in my life where I don't have to do this anymore. Or, and the way that I really view this, there are hard days. There's days where I think, oh, this is the worst. Why am I doing this? There's other days where it feels great, but really doing good work and being able to employ other people, even at a small scale. I don't employ the kind of people that you do, but making a difference in some people's lives. The way that my clients, the way that I show up for them, the way that I can be honest, controlling things I can control. I actually wrote down just sort of how I summarize this book. It's when we approach our work with excellence and love, we reflect God's nature and make a real impact on others. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. I mean, it's a small way, and I don't know, like, in 50 years, is anyone going to remember this small company? Maybe not, but hopefully can make a difference in some people's lives. When you place somebody, when they're able to have a career because of a connection that you're able to make. And then when those companies that people put so much work into are able to, have great talent that allows them to keep working, to me, that feels like meaningful work and what I'm trying to build and what I want to keep doing.
That's awesome. I was actually going to ask you, what are you reading lately? Any other books or podcasts that you've picked up on lately?
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of the faith-based book that I'm reading right now. I do love to read. I'm reading my grandparents, who who live in sort of your neck of the woods, they travel a lot, and they're both avid readers, and they give me a lot of book recommendations every year for my birthday and for Christmas. They give me books, so I always have a pile of books that I haven't quite finished. And they always ask me, have you read these yet? But I'm reading one right now called Sonia. It's like a Cold War book. It's a true story. Anyway, it's good. I really enjoy it. I do find that maybe this is an excuse, that sometimes I go to work, I sit all day. By the end of the day, I'm just so tired of sitting that I don't feel like reading something. And so I try to go to the gym or do something active, play some tennis or volleyball or something. But I do love to read when I have time.
That's awesome. Any kind of closing thoughts from your end about, it could be about like leadership lessons learned recently, or anything that we didn't cover off that comes to mind at all for you?
Yeah. I actually had somebody ask me that too recently. I gave a talk at George Brown, and somebody asked me if I had any like life lessons, and I felt totally like I didn't deserve to be giving anyone life lessons yet, because I'm still figuring it out. But I think if there was one thing that I would share with people that I think has been the most helpful for me, or at least one of the things, I remember my dad used to say 80% of success is just showing up every day. And I actually think it's a Woody Allen quote, but he used to say it all the time. And I think it's so true. There's so many times where you think this isn't going to work out, or this is so difficult, or you get a bit of a curveball, or there's always a million challenges. I'll put it that way. But the biggest thing is just dealing with them and showing up, and things tend to work out. I mean, they don't always work out the way you think they're going to work out, but showing up and doing your work to the best of your ability, over time things tend to work out, and not giving up. I think a lot of times people give up too quickly, think, okay, it's not working. And it doesn't mean that you have to start a company. If you're in a role, if you're working for somebody, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not seeing the success that I thought I was going to see in this role, or it doesn't feel the way maybe I thought it was going to feel, or whatever. I think a lot of times when people give up, I see that a lot. People say, oh, I want a new job. It doesn't feel like how I thought it would feel. Have you given it enough time? Are you showing up every day? So that's probably the biggest thing that I think has helped me, and what I would want to tell other people.
Thanks so much, Tom, for giving us some time, telling us about what you do. There's so much to this industry, and where you're at right now in developing your company, developing relationships. There's so much in the background that happens to place the right person in the right seat with the right values, for a long-term win. So super interesting learning morning for me, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much, Jordi. It's good to see you, and hope we can catch up soon.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right. See you later. Bye.